Hello and welcome, everybody. Welcome to the No Name Music Cast. My name's Tim, and this is
Joy.
And at the very top of the show, I'm going to hand you over to Joy for music news.
All right. So there's this whole, I wanted to bring this up because me and Tim have talked a lot about Ticketmaster in the last few episodes. Have you seen the Taylor Swift lawsuit has went to court finally, Tim?
No, I haven't. I think we spoke about Robert Smith from The Cure and his beef with Ticketmaster, but I haven't heard about the Taylor Swift thing.
So Taylor Swift's fans were upset over scalpers being able to buy and resell and all the craziness that happened where you saw the headlines, people spending $10,000 to go see her. Mm-hmm. So that has went to court, and that is in LA as of Monday. And I haven't heard much about it. But while I was doing this, and this was filed back in December, and it was chaotic. If you've seen anything about it, basically the plaintiffs claimed that the ticketing giant violated the antitrust laws, among others. This was a status hearing and the class action was discussed. The defense is not anticipating asking for a class action, but I guess they're reserving their right to. So bringing more people into a big class action lawsuit. Mm-hmm. So, the reason I brought this up was the headlines for Ticketmaster were Ticketmaster avoids Mexico because they messed up somebody's tickets. Over 2,000 fans were denied entry to a concert for Bad Bunny in Mexico. Okay. And they're going to the federal consumer attorney's office to file charges against Ticketmaster. Mm-hmm. All right. And, as if it wasn't enough, there's a lawsuit over Drake ticket prices from 22 hours ago. So I have a feeling this is going to be an ongoing thing. So basically, it's a Canadian law firm this time has filed a class action lawsuit against Ticketmaster for allegedly inflating ticket prices for an upcoming Drake concert. The lawsuit was filed on behalf of a Quebec man who argued that he had overpaid for a July 14th show before a second tour date was announced. The ticket price for the same set at the second show was 360 Canadian dollars, about 262 American dollars, 214 euros, cheaper than what he paid for the original one. So that's the amount that it was less. So you can tell that's not happening in America because we would just have to pay. I thought it was funny. So I saw 3 headlines for 3 different lawsuits. And on top of this, though, as if Ticketmaster shouldn't just be quiet and maybe sit back and just reduce their cost, Tim. No, instead they're testing NFT-enabled pre-sales with Avenged Sevenfold concert coming up.
I mean, how did we get here with Ticketmaster? When did it become this all-seeing entity that everything you ever want to do is through Ticketmaster? It's terrible. I mean, I remember booking tickets. You'd phone the venue up and then you'd give them your credit card details and they'd send them in the post to you.
Well, this NFT thing, members of the band's NFT fan club, which I'm sure you have to pay to be a part of, will get first access to tickets through a new token-gated integration.
And that's why? Yeah, and that's something. NFTs, I don't understand that. It's just an image file or a computer file of some description that supposedly has this blockchain in it, and therefore it's valuable. I'm lost on that.
So I've been down this road with Charlie. The only time I agree with him that I guess in some way I kind of get it is when it's like an NFT from an artist and you get the physical art with it in some way. So you're like buying that image. But how in the long run it's supposed to attribute to money, I don't get. I don't get it. It's gone, Tim.
And what do you call it? Bitcoin and the like. That it just annoys me because it's not real money. I don't care what anyone says. It's not real money.
Well, for a little bit, Charlie, my husband's really sad though because he had sold some that he tried it when he was younger, but he was like, "No, I didn't go anywhere." And then he's like, "If I had kept that, he would have been spiked there for a little bit." But also, I don't understand that I kind of get because you can use it as a form of currency in some way. The Bitcoin mining is the part I don't understand.
Yeah, it's like you run a load of code on your computer for ages, use loads of electricity, and then therefore it has monetary value. I don't. The whole of this Bitcoin currency world thing. I just don't get it. It completely escapes me.
Well, if you remember on the Freak Jam, we went down this road one late night Zoom, and I don't think any of us got it, Tim.
No,
there's a whole bunch of yelling.
I mean, you can argue that the US dollar doesn't really have any value because it's not backed by gold anymore, or the euro doesn't actually have any value because it's not backed by gold, and the pound and all that kind of stuff. But it's a banknote or a currency that's issued by a government, which is internationally recognized and traded.
That's what I was thinking. It's almost like, yes, there's no physical gold backing anymore, but you're basically doing it on the credit of a established country. You know what I'm saying, Tim?
Sure, absolutely. And then until I can go to, I don't know, CVS and buy stuff in Bitcoin, it's worthless.
Tim's not going to be investing in any Dogecoin, or they've all got weird names too.
No, I don't know. The whole concept is completely and utterly lost on me. I don't understand.
Well, anyway, apparently instead of, maybe just addressing the reason they're being sued 3 different times, Ticketmaster thought the answer was to try to get into NFTs. So there you go. Wonderful, Tim. All right, what is your music news?
Okay, well, I have a few music news items this week. First off, our friend Adele. Adele, who is known to be not nice to her crew and throw them under the bus. So I don't have a huge, great opinion on Adele, regardless of how much people like her music or how great a singer she is. I've read stories about how she threw her crew under the bus when she's supposed to play at Caesar's Palace one time, and I was not into that. But anyhow, she has been doing gigs in Vegas. She had a residency at Vegas. And if you're into Adele's, what I understand is that it's a really good show.
Okay.
And I've seen clips of it, and the production of it seems superb. I'm not into Adele. It's not the kind of music I would ever listen to. But if you're into that world, apparently it's really good. Well, anyway, she has extended her residency at the Colosseum at Caesar's Palace.
Oh, that headline.
Yeah, and she's going to be there until November.
It has to be. I wonder how much they're paid for these Vegas residencies.
Absurd amount of money. Absolutely absurd amount of money.
It has to be, because that's like once you get your Vegas residency at this point, it's almost like you've made it. You know what I mean, Tim? Like, it's a big deal. And it started out back in the day, it was a joke. People like Barbra Streisand, Cher, all that kind of stuff. But now it feels like every time I turn around, I hear somebody else. Britney Spears did one. Lady Gaga did one. I'm sure there's other artists that I'm not thinking of off the top of my head. But it used to be, everybody be like, oh, let's go see Cher or something like that. I don't know when it became like Vegas residency, everybody gets one.
Well, I think because you have the built-in audience of Vegas. It's a transient audience because you have new people coming in and out every single week. You have all those attractions.
It makes sense.
Yeah, everyone wants to go to Vegas. They have these huge arenas. All of them are the size of Wembley Arena, Madison Square Garden, or whatever like that. They're all completely world-class arenas. Most of them are brand new or nearly new anyway, so the acoustics sound great. And from a performer's perspective, why would you not want to do that? Because rather than getting on airplanes every day and traveling all over the country, you go to Vegas, you're there for 3 months, 6 months, however long this residency is. Yeah, all the equipment is set up. You don't have to sound check every day. They probably put you up in the nicest hotel that they have. If you want to do anything when you're there, everything is available, restaurants, shows, etc., etc. It's just an easy gig all round. Why would you not want to do that?
Yeah, no, it makes sense. It's just funny because I think about like in movies and TV shows when it used to be a joke, like, let's go see, I'm trying to think of some artists that would be a Cher residency or like a Barbra Streisand. But now I feel like it's just everybody. But it would be interesting to know how much each person. The other thing is how much does each show cost? Like, it's got to be super costly each show, because from what I see with Vegas residency is they're huge productions. They're almost Broadway level productions.
Oh, absolutely.
In that sense.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen clips of the Adele show, and she's got like the stage floods, and then there's like fire and all this kind of stuff. I mean, the tickets I'm sure are absurdly expensive, and I mean, if you're a high roller in Vegas, you'll get them comped. But I'd be surprised if you could get a ticket for less than $300 or $400 at this point.
Well, I'm sensing a podcast topic about Vegas residencies coming up in my future. Tim, don't take that.
Well, I did. I saw, as you know, I saw Tom Jones in Vegas, and I believe that was a residency. So
There we go. All right, what's our next news?
okay, so as you may or may not have heard, Pink Floyd's Dark Side of the Moon is celebrating its 50th anniversary.
It's crazy.
It's incredible to think that. I mean, that's an album I've listened to hundreds of times. I probably only really got into it 20 years ago or so, I suppose. I was a late bloomer in the Dark Side of the Moon, but you know, I've heard it so many times. I've owned it on CD multiple times. I've owned it on record. And
I have an original on vinyl. That's one Charlie went out of his way to get.
yeah, I mean, that's like an analog to analog transfer, so it probably sounds fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they're
really
coming
does.
out. They're coming out with a box set, obviously, because that's what you do now. That's how you rinse the fans of their hard-earned Bitcoin. Is that
You send them to Ticketmaster and you give them a box set.
exactly would pay with an NFT or something. But they've got this 50th anniversary box set, and it's got alternative takes, and it's got singles, and it's got posters, and all this kind of stuff. It's got a 5.1 surround mix if you have a surround system, and all that kind of stuff. But what's interesting is that Pink Floyd are releasing a lot of the exclusive elements in this set completely independently. Now, normally, if you get a big box set from a band like this, you have to buy the set to get everything. And then we discussed the Guns N' Roses box set where, in fact, not even everything was in the box set. You had to buy the CD separately to get everything you wanted. But I said Pink Floyd are releasing, I think they're releasing the book and some other things are in the set as separate. But what I received this week when it was released, which was really interesting, was Dark Side of the Moon live at Wembley. Now, this is from London. It's from Wembley Empire Pool, as it was known at the time. And then that later became Wembley Arena. And this was from 1974. And I think this is just before actually Dark Side of the Moon was released. But what's interesting is they play the whole album in its entirety.
At the concert? Wow.
Yeah. And they did that later on in the sort of the 90s when they were touring with Pulse. Like a part of the set was Dark Side in its entirety. And in fact, if you have the Pulse CD box set, it has that Dark Side set in it. And that's a lot more of a contemporary. When I say contemporary, it's 30 years old, but it's more of a contemporary version of Dark Side of the Moon. This is it's very Genesis. Roger Waters is on bass, the original lineup and everything. And it is really good. I listened to it yesterday. The CD came yesterday, and I listened to it yesterday. And I don't know, I really like it. And it sounds so fresh considering it's basically 50 years old.
So what else are the pieces like that come in the box set? Obviously, you just got the CD because you could buy, I guess, it individually. But what's the rest?
Okay, so the box set itself, it says a CD and gatefold vinyl of the 2023 remastered studio album, plus a Blu-ray and a DVD. Both have the 5.1 surround mixes on them. It comes with a vinyl copy of Dark Side of the Moon, the CD that I just spoke about, and I think it also comes on vinyl too, a 160-page hardback photo book, a music book, some replica 7-inch singles, and some memorabilia too.
It's a lot of stuff.
And in fact, I haven't seen the price, so let's go on to Amazon right now. What does this go over? $279.
For everything you said, that's not terrible. There's a lot of stuff you mentioned. I don't know that I'm going to buy it, but I mean, that is a lot of stuff. Yeah,
it is quite a collection if you're super into Pink Floyd. I mean, I'm happy with my CD copy, which is, I think it's a 2011 remaster, and this new live album that I have. I mean, I'm more than happy with that. I don't want for anything else.
So you don't need like Roger Waters or somebody to bring this one to you?
No, the thing is, he's so grumpy and weird. He wouldn't do that for any price. Kiss, on the other hand, if you approached Kiss's management and said, hey, I'd like Gene Simmons to bring the box set to my house, they'd be like, sure, well, we have a price for that.
Fair enough. That's because they know how to market too.
Exactly.
That's funny.
Well, I have one last music news item. So it was announced this week, we're recording this at the end of March, that Queen and Adam Lambert, who I unkindly called the Brian May Karaoke Band, they are going to be doing some US tour dates. Did you see that?
I did not.
Okay. It's called the Rhapsody Tour because obviously everything is Bohemian Rhapsody. I mean, you know, they're hundreds of songs that they have and they're fabulous albums that span every genre. The only thing they focus on is Bohemian Rhapsody, but that's beside the point.
That's how you really feel, Tim.
Well, it's true. I mean, we've covered this before. I mean, it's like
it's always that thing.
Yeah. Do you want progressive rock? Do you want disco? Do you want 80s? I mean, whatever you want, it's there. And what does anyone ever talk about? Bohemian Rhapsody.
I agree. All right. So what's with the tour?
Okay. So they're coming back to North America to tour. And I was surprised the dates that they're playing. They don't come anywhere near here. There's no They normally come to the Carolinas.
Yeah.
But there are no Carolina dates. So they come to Atlanta and Nashville, and that's about as close. Now, they are going to Toronto at the beginning of October. And I like to go to Canada for my birthday, but I don't think we can make it work with Hannah getting time off work and stuff like that. And there's a project she's working on around that time. It's probably not going to happen. So I was going to buy some tickets this Friday because I really want to see Brian May again. I don't care really for Adam Lambert at all, but I would put up with him just to see Brian May again. But I don't know. I don't think we can make it work. And I'm hoping that they're going to announce other dates. If they announce like North Carolina dates or South Carolina dates, I'll probably get tickets. But again, how much is this going to cost?
That's what I'm wondering. How much? When's the Nashville one? Because Nashville's not that far.
No, October the 25th. But yeah, it's not that far, but it's still an 7 hour drive from here or something like that.
Yeah. And like you said, October's not a good time of year. That's weird. It's kind of a weird time to tour.
Exactly. I mean, I'm glad they're still out there. I mean, Brian May and Roger Taylor are in their 70s and they still want to get out there and play music, which is fantastic. But I don't know, maybe they will announce more dates. I mean, I'm looking at the dates. They sort of all run one after the other. So I don't know whether they'll extend it. I hope they will. And if they do, I'll try and see them. But I don't know. I want to be somewhere down by the front. I want to see Brian May play. But do I want to invest $600, $700 into that experience? I don't know.
Yeah, and the tickets are going to be expensive, and watch them be on Ticketmaster.
Well, they're not using Ticketmaster. They are using Live Nation, which is basically the same thing.
Ticketmaster, yeah. Fair enough. I bought tickets from them. Live Nation, too, does. They've done a lot of rock concerts I've went to. Mm-hmm. Because they tend to do that kind of stuff. And they're the ones who used to hold, what was that? I can't think of it. The alternative rock festival that we all went to in the early 2000s. Why can't I think of the name of it, Tim?
Lollapalooza.
No, not that one.
Warped Tour.
Warped Tour. That's what I was trying to think of. Yeah. Vans Warped Tour. Yeah. I was like, no, not that one.
Well, I tell you what, to Brian May and Roger Taylor's credit, there is a blurb on this press release about how the tickets will only be sold at face value. And if you need to sell them, they can only ever be sold at face value. And there's some shenanigans with that.
Help with scalping type stuff.
Scalping stuff, unless you're in New York, Illinois, or Colorado, where they have laws in place that protect the ticket scalpers, apparently, which is weird. But I don't know. I said I've seen Brian May play 8 times, 10 times. We listed them out on the Brian May episode. Mm-hmm. I doubt if I paid more than the £50 for any of those tickets.
Well, I'll keep my fingers crossed for you, Tim. They come closer and that they're not the cost of your kidney. And I don't know anyone to harvest your kidney, so good luck. Yeah,
it's just, I don't know. I really want to see this, but the money to be invested in it, I don't know. It's tough.
Well, you got some time to ponder it over.
Yeah, and also I've had to service 2 cars, buy 2 new tires, put Jack through the vet, and then we had a plumber come. So our little pot of money that we put aside for emergencies is somewhat depleted a little bit.
Yeah. Well, you never know. Maybe you'll win the lottery before Friday.
Well, I maybe I'll buy a scratch and sniff ticket tomorrow. I don't know.
Please do. And if you win, I want just a thank you for telling you to move.
Well, if I win a significant amount, Joy, I'll buy you something nice for your new house. How's that?
Yay! I'm moving in May, everyone. All right. So it is Tim's topic.
Yay! So yeah, let's get this onto the episode in hand. So I was thinking about what to do, and I know you're a fan of the ones where I pick out a single topic and then have a list of songs.
I am.
Yeah. So I was thinking, I play in a band called Flagger Hill.
That I do know.
Yeah, and for those people who don't know, Flagger Hill is the name of a road in Floyd, Virginia. Flagger Hill Road. And before I got involved with the band, they would practice on Flagger Hill Road, which is the name of the band now. There was some talk about changing the name, but we decided to stick with it. It's a little bit of an unusual band name, I think.
It is, and it kind of makes me think of the word phlegm, but anyway.
Yeah, I've had people say Phlegm Hill as well. And some people say Flieger and some people say Flagger. I say Flagger, but anyhow. But with that in mind, I thought let's pull together a list of songs that have Hill in the title. So this is the Hill songs episode.
I mostly like these because it takes Tim to be a little bit more creative.
All right. So I've got some songs here that we can discuss. Some of them probably won't surprise you. Some of them may surprise you.
All right.
Okay. So I'm going to open up with a very obvious one. This is from the Magical Mystery Tour, and this is the song Fool on the Hill by the Beatles.
I kind of knew that one was going to be the first one you'd bring up, but I will say my mind instantly went to, and if this is on your list, Tim, I'm sorry, I'm going to break it for a second. My mind honestly went to "I Got My Thrill on Blueberry Hill." So I was like, that might be the first one he comes up with. This is kind of one of those forgotten Beatles songs, honestly. I don't ever hear anyone talk about it.
Yeah, I mean, it's from the Magical Mystery Tour soundtrack album. And as we've discussed, the Magical Mystery Tour was a quirky film that the Beatles put together. And it was supposedly going to be this big thing that went out on Boxing Day. And then it got released and it was like they were all doing acid or something when it was filmed. And it's just wacky and weird.
Now, Paul McCartney is the one who sings on Fool on the Hill, right?
That's correct, yeah.
And then I always wondered, for some reason, I always imagined that the Fool on the Hill, though I never quite understood what they were going for. For those who don't know, it's kind of like they're talking about somebody who's not there and they're saying things about them. Mm-hmm. I kind of always thought it was like a troll telling them not to pass a bridge or something. But then I'm like, they're on a hill, so it's not really a bridge. Like I had an image of like a little troll. I don't know. Maybe that's...
Maybe. I mean, I can't remember the sequence in Magical Mystery Tour about Fool on the Hill, but I don't think I think it was a metaphorical fool on a metaphorical hill while they're all on their bus and John Lennon's like shoveling spaghetti or some nonsense like that.
I mean, to be fair, there might have been a fool on the hill and they were the only ones who could see it.
Maybe that's the case.
As we mentioned, there may have been some influence in their their brains while making this album.
Yeah, I believe they were likely chemically assisted whilst creating this piece of art.
I don't know. I just always think of like a little troll that's like, you do not pass, but I don't think that's what they were going for.
Maybe not, but there you go.
I told no one anything about the song, but there's my theory.
Well, I do like it. I mean, I will say I do like the Magical Mystery Tour album. And if you have the original album, half of it is Beatles music and half of it is like the original score by George Martin, which is quite interesting.
It's actually like really hard. That album, I've tried a few times to just pick away at the ukulele on some of those songs. And it's quite difficult. The Beatles are ones that are a little bit more challenging on some of the later albums, I think, than when they first started.
Absolutely.
Though Tim's like, I can probably do it in my sleep or something because he's that guy.
Well, I could probably hear it and pick it up,
Oh, whatever.
But mind you, I was having a Twitter conversation with someone the other day. Someone on Twitter who I know through music, who I've never met.
Yeah.
And she was talking about reading music. And I was like, yeah, I can play in bands and stuff. And I can play songs off the top of my head, but I have no idea.
And that doesn't surprise me. But I mean, you know what notes are supposed to sound like and everything at this point. So if someone puts like just some chords in front of Tim, he can play it like nothing. It's more of like you don't know how to read on a grandstand, right?
Yeah, I don't know how to read from a stave. I also don't know what most of the notes are on the guitar, if I'm being honest with you. I know them across the low E and the bottom E strings.
Mm-hmm.
And then like where the D string is, it's like two notes down from there.
Yeah.
And I think that's about it. And then I know a couple of scales. And that's pretty much the lot. And a few notes that join them together. But it makes sense to me. But it's hard to describe.
And Tim, for those who don't know, Tim is revered as an amazing guitar player, though he'll never say it, from all of his friends, people who play with him. And he says stuff like that. And I'm like, so you mean to tell me how? Oh, well.
Yeah, my friend who lives around the corner said, oh, can you teach me how to play guitar? I said, well, I know the sum total of two scales and I only know the notes on the E strings. Does that help you?
You can get more from the YouTube. So I learned the basis of the ukulele.
Then he started going about, oh, mate, should I learn the circle of fifths? I said, I have no idea what that is.
Honestly, I don't either. Not a clue. Don't have any. All right. What's the next Hill song?
Okay. Now, this is a little bit unusual. This is probably one that you wouldn't think I would pull out.
Okay.
And the Hill is actually in one of the players of the song. So this is by Will Smith, Drew Hill, and Cool Mo D. And this is the song Wild West. Oh, going to the Wild Wild West. Have you ever watched the movie? I have. I once saw it in the cinema when it came out with friends.
I love it. I actually love that movie. I thought it was hilarious. For those who don't know, it's a very kind of sci-fi meets Wild Wild West movie. And there's like a bad guy and they're in the West, but then they're also like playing on the steampunk thing, I guess, is where the sci-fi part comes in. I don't even remember why. What did he like try to steal? Well, there was a big robot. I remember that. Yeah,
I mean, this was around when the steampunk genre was having sort of a big thing. People were into steampunk and steampunk ideas. And for those who don't know, it's sort of old-fashioned, but with new technology on it. Or like you'd have a desktop computer, but it would all have brass fixings on it to make it look really old. It's a sort of a technology crossover type thing, and a lot of people super get into it, and they dress in the steampunk style and have hats and things like that. And it was around the time when people were becoming aware of steampunk. And the reason I picked it is my dear friend Jules, who sadly is no longer with us. I went with him and his friends to see it at the cinema, and he loved that song. And later on, he used to perform I Wish, the Stevie Wonder song. And of course, this song is basically a ripoff of I Wish.
Yeah.
And then he would play, and in the middle, he'd do a breakdown, and then he'd do the Wild Wild West lyrics as a rap.
That's awesome. Well, everybody knows Will Smith is credited as writing this, but did you know George Clinton also wrote on this song? I don't know what parts he's credited for, but
I didn't know. The gentleman from Parliament Funkadelic, in fact.
It makes sense, though, when you listen to it, when you hear it, that he would be part of it. Now, I just love this song because I like Will Smith. My favorite funny joke, though, I love when people talk about Will Smith as a rapper, quote unquote, is Family Guy did a joke about how Will Smith is like a rapper, but he's like a family friendly rapper.
Oh.
And it's kind of true. Do you know what I mean, Tim? And they did don't talk back to your mom and go to school, like him rapping to that. And it's kind of true, honestly.
The only thing is don't speak poorly about his family members, otherwise he will slap you in the face.
Yeah. And apparently, I don't know. I was always on the fence on whose side I was on that. I don't advocate for violence, but I also don't advocate for speaking negatively about people. Maybe everybody should just be nice.
No, that's true. But when you're a comedian, to some degree
you have to.
I mean, you've got one celebrity person who does, TV and comedy and stuff like that, and then you have a comedian who's known to be a little bit edgy.
I know, it's hard.
Yeah, so I mean, I probably wouldn't have liked it too, but you just go, ha ha, and then you just move on to the next thing, and then it would have just evaporated. Yeah,
you bring more, you're bringing more attention to something that nobody would have even heard or thought of ever again by making a scene.
Exactly, because I mean, Ricky Gervais has done the Oscars, and I don't like Ricky Gervais. I find him incredibly abrasive, and I don't really like his humor. Mm-hmm. But he's done things like Oscars and called people out and said things like that, and then they pan to the audience, and then people are going ha 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 ha, and it's never heard of again.
Yeah, and that's the thing is I would have never known that his wife was struggling with the hair problem or just the alopecia or any of that had none of this came of it. Would have never known.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, there you go. There's our 2 cents about Will Smith slapping other artists, or Chris Rock, right? That was his name?
Chris Rock, comedian Chris Rock.
Yeah. I don't know.
Okay, so next song for you. This is from the television show Hill Street Blues, and it's the theme tune to Hill Street Blues.
Street Blues.
And it's by Mike Post, and the session guitarist and jazz guitarist of note Larry Carlton actually plays guitar in that. So, have you ever seen the TV show Hill Street Blues?
Only because I'm going to bring a Family Guy joke back into this. There's a joke on Family Guy where the grandfather starts playing the piano and he's like, Hill Street Blues. He starts singing the song. And so I didn't know what he was doing, so I went and looked it up.
Yeah, it goes, bam, 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 bam.
He was playing the piano.
Yeah.
And it's, I have seen the little like picture. It's a bunch of, they're like cops, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's about all I remember, though. I'm going to be honest with you, Tim. Was that an American show, though, or was that popular in the UK?
I mean, it's a 70s cop drama, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then when I say Hill Street Blues, they're the cops of Hill Street, and they wear a blue uniform, which is why it's Hill Street Blues. It was one of those programs that was very popular in the UK. It seems to be a lot of US shows were maybe more popular in the UK than they ever were in the US. The A-Team being one of them. That was so iconic in the UK. And people know it here, but I get the sense it's not to the same degree. And I think a lot of these shows, Starsky and Hutch was another one. Hill Street Blues. What was another one? Hunter. That was a massive show in the 90s.
I have no idea what that is.
Yeah, and I remember that being on TV and people loving Hunter, which was another cop show. I don't know, somehow US TV shows like that really resonate with the UK audience.
Maybe because it's so out of the left side of what the UK police are really like. I don't know.
Exactly. UK police are pulling you over because you're doing 31 and a 30 and your number plate hasn't got white screws or something like that.
Whereas in America, we've got all kinds of other stuff going on.
Exactly.
Or it's just maybe there was a lack of that type show being produced in the UK, and there's just a market for it universally. I don't know.
I mean, I remember I think it was in the 80s, there was a TV show called Cagney and, was it? No, Cagney and Lacey was, Cagney and Lacey was the US show. The UK show was Dempsey and Makepeace.
Of course it was. Of course it was. It was the exact same show, or was it completely different?
It was the same principle. It was a male and female, duo cop, yada, yada, yada.
I have a theory that like everything in the UK kind of sounds like it could be a candy. Like the name of a candy. Like when Tim says streets and different buildings are like this, I'm always like, that could be like a name for a candy. I don't know why.
Well, you said that with Piccadilly Circus.
Yes, that would always make me think it's a candy. But like anytime you say, I'm just like, it all just sounds so like, I don't know, almost bubbly.
Well, like Winchester, or I don't know. Heston.
And now that you said it, we're never going to find it. But I'm going to start a tally. Every time Tim says a name that sounds like a candy, I'm going to point it out for everyone.
Okay, wait. Maybe you can. You could, I was say you could hold up a sign, but then I forgot this is an audio-only podcast.
This episode's going to be off the scales. All right, what's the next one?
Okay, so this one is from the album Tattoos and Scars, and this is Montgomery Gentry, and this is a song, Hillbilly Shoes.
That is unexpected of you to do a Montgomery Gentry song, Tim.
Well, there we are. I'm very familiar with this song because in the last band I was in, not my current band, Flagget Hill, the previous band, we used to do Hillbilly Shoes.
That doesn't surprise me, though. I was going to say, you're probably familiar with it because I could see that song being popular around here.
Yeah, I've played it. They used to like it in the Moose Lodges, and I've played it in lots of different places, and it always seemed to go down well. I had a really cool riff, and it was in drop D. I really remember that.
And for those who don't know, it's a song about a guy saying, walk a mile in my shoes type situation, and he happens to be a hillbilly.
Exactly.
But Oh, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I used to really like playing it. My current band doesn't do a lot of like newer country. I mean, this is again, 20 years old probably, but
Yeah.
they tend to play a few classic country songs from any of the newer stuff because the singer in Flake Hill doesn't care too much for like pop country as a rule.
Well, and Montgomery Gentry was mostly popular in the 90s here. And, it's the duo between the guys. That's their last names, Montgomery and Gentry. But, yeah, I mean, I think of them more modern because I think of the 90s. And then you point out to me that's 30 years ago. And I'm like, oh, yeah, that's true.
Yeah, well, as we covered before, the 1990s were around 15 years ago. The 1980s were 20 years ago. And the year 2000 was 3 years ago.
Well, then how old am I? Because I was born in 1990. I didn't know I was so young. Say that to the back pain and knee pain I had this morning, Tim.
Oh, crikey. I mean, what was it you was telling me before we hit record about how like a desk attacked you?
Oh, yeah. I got hit in the face with a board. So for those who don't know, me and Charlie are moving at the beginning of May, which I kind of hinted at. We're moving into a townhouse. Very exciting, but we are throwing out a bunch of stuff as you do, because me and Tim have discussed when you move, you learn how much stuff you really have, and you realize there's a bunch of junk in your house you don't need. You just don't need it. And then there's like that cheap furniture that doesn't move well, and you're like, it's going to fall apart. So my old desk that I had before I got my new standing one was made from that. What's that type of board that I'm thinking of, Tim? There's a name for it.
It's MDF or particle board.
Particle board is the word I'm looking for. So we had already taken it and thrown it out because I got a new standing desk from Amazon. Well, while we were going through all this, they're doing a big trash pickup. They do this occasionally in me and Tim's area where a big truck comes by. You can put a bunch of big stuff out by the road. So perfect time for you when you're moving. So Charlie was like, well, let's go ahead and get this old desk out of the garage. And I was like, okay, made it the particle board. It had pretty much already fell apart when we moved it out to the garage, but one leg was standing up. And so I had the side with the leg standing up and Charlie had the other side because he was walking backwards. And we get to the place where we're going to set this down by the road. And I'm like, okay, let's set it here. No warning, no nothing. Charlie drops it without setting it down. And when he drops it, the side that I'm holding goes up and the board hits me right in the face. Glasses go flying. I have a little mark. Tim can see it. It's been a few days. It cut me. There was just blood dripping down the side of my face. And it was one of those ones where I am not the kind of person when I injure myself, I want to be talked to. I'd rather people just leave me alone. And it was one of those, there was like a silence and he just stared at me for a second. And he's like, would you like your glasses? I was like, yep. And I'm going inside and tries, I'll move the rest. But yeah, I had a little bruise and a cut and my face was bleeding and because it was that particle board, it has like the serrated edges. It just caught me just right. It's right on the temple of my forehead.
Oh, I mean, it's lucky it didn't get you in the eye, to be honest.
Probably I'm just lucky I was wearing glasses. So that's why I caught them, because it knocked my glasses all the way like across. And then I instantly was like, please don't be broken. Please don't be broken. Please don't be broken. Because I'm blind without them.
Well, I really think that you should have nothing to do with moving house. What I'd like to happen is someone to do that for you. We'll wrap you up in bubble wrap and then drop you off in the house at the other end. I mean, will that work? I don't know. I
don't know, because to be fair, we're not moving some of the big furniture. Some of it's staying. So we're planning on buying the only things. We have a bunch of friends who are going to help us. So maybe I'll just let them handle a lot of the heavy things and I'll just carry like food and stuff.
Yeah, but the thing is, food, that could be knives, that could be forks.
That's true.
I mean, I don't know. I'm not comfortable with this moving idea for you, Joy. It's not for you.
It's a dangerous world. It's a dangerous world. Well, I can't afford a mover, so friends it is. Friends it is in a big box truck, and we'll make it happen. I've also got a fear of my new place is a 2-story, so there will be stairs.
Okay.
But I will not move things up the stairs. I will leave that for someone else. Because he'd be trying to carry something up the stairs and get the other end that I wasn't planning on.
Do you have a bathroom on both floors?
I do.
That honestly, I will sleep well tonight with that knowledge, because I have visions of you in the night trying to negotiate stairs, and that is not something that I really want to think about.
That's true. And especially in a new, when you move, like even if you just move your furniture around, if you're trying to negate yourself at night through your bedroom and something's different, it's always the worst.
Yes.
So like in a new place when you're trying to find that, yeah. Well, anyway, hopefully I don't end up with another broken foot, because that was only in October, Tim.
I have my fingers and toes and guitar strings crossed for you.
You probably should get those fixed. What's the next song?
Okay, so this one, how could you not have a Hill episode without this one? This is an absolute classic from a singer who is amazing. Our listener Megan loves this artist, and I love this artist too. And this is Kate Bush, Running Up That Hill.
Which is, very popular right now.
Yeah,
well, it was very popular.
Yeah, it sort of had that renaissance with Stranger Things, which is a TV show which I've never ever seen. But it was all over the internet when this came out. And like Kate Bush interviews from way back when were appearing out of nowhere, and NPR were running pieces about it. And then there was a podcast episode where they were talking about the synthesizer that was used on this track. And if you have one of these synthesizers, it was this setting, and then you apply this and that, and it gives that exact wow wow sound. And then someone found a version of Kate Bush doing it with David Gilmour live. I mean, it was like Kate Bush had been laying low for decades unless she was a fan, and all of a sudden, boom, Kate Bush was everywhere.
And I was hearing it, like you'd be walking through the grocery store and you'd hear it playing on the radio, and you haven't heard that song in forever. And it really works, though, because it does have that really cool sound. And if you're not familiar with it, it would be kind of like attractive. Like if you've never heard this song, you're instantly zoned in on it because of the cool sounds. But I was reading that her YouTube, the original YouTube like video footage, I don't know if it's like the Vivo one or whatever, got over 100 million views because of the Insurgents. It wasn't near that, but now it's one of the highest watched videos on YouTube.
Wow. I mean, I've seen the video to this. Maybe they'll upscale it to 4K. I don't know.
I mean, it probably would be. I would think that it would probably be worth it. And it said that the UK, it was even more popular than in America because Kate Bush is like, more of a UK artist. Mm-hmm. So I could see people kind of going back and watch it. But yeah. And I remember where was it I was at? We went there's a bowling alley here. Tim's familiar with the one I'm talking about. And there's like a little arcade in the bowling alley. Mm-hmm. And I was with Charlie and my friend Bolly and Adam, and we're sitting there and we're just going through the bowling alley. And I hear this playing on the thing, and I see younger children like singing it and stuff that you wouldn't imagine.
I like that. I do hope that people who get introduced to songs like this through TV shows, I do hope they go back and find other stuff.
Me too.
Because, I mean, Kate Bush is not a running up that hill one-hit wonder. She has other amazing music. And even if you stick within the greatest hits, mm-hmm. there are still other amazing songs. I just hope that people sort of delve back a little bit and find some other stuff.
And I also like that she did what, a few other, Metallica, I think, was one of the other ones that talked about, because, they got a resurgence from Stranger Things as well. Not gatekeeping music. I can't stand when people gatekeep music. I think it's pointless.
Mm-hmm.
And she spoke out and was like, no, I love it. And I'm sure she's making great money off of it becoming popular again. But
sure, absolutely. I do have a tip for Kate Bush live music, though. If you go onto YouTube, there's a version of her doing Wuthering Heights on Top of the Pops. Mm-hmm. And she was like 22 or something. Actually, I think she was maybe even younger than that. I think she was in like 19. I can't remember. But she was at the very beginning of her career, and she's super young. And this performance is superb. She's playing it on piano. She's singing it. And it is amazing. The kind of passion in her voice and her range, mm-hmm. superb.
Wonderful. Well, I haven't actually seen that, so I'm going to have to go find it. I love the Top of the Pops things, too. I find them very interesting to watch because I like to compare them to, like, the American Bandstand and just mm-hmm. see all the difference. And the other day I was watching something, and somebody said, I used to be a Top of the Pops dancer. And I was like, oh, I know what that is now.
There you go. It was either Legs and Co. or, well, I think the original one was Pan's People. And then in the 70s, it was Legs and Co.
For those who haven't heard that, one of the episodes, I have no clue what episode it was, but Tim one time said, Pan's Pizza, a people. And I thought he said, like, I thought of a pizza pan. And I was like, who's having pizza? Tim's like, what are you talking about? I was like, and he's like, no, Pan's And I went, oh, well, who's paying? And it's like, no one, Joy. That's just the name of the dancer. It went right past me. First, I thought he was talking about a pizza ad. And then I asked, well, who's paying? He goes, I don't know. It's just the name of the dancer. So it stuck with me because I remember thinking, I worry about myself. Anyway. And if somebody does know who Pan is,
I think Pan was maybe the leader of the dance troupe or the choreographer of the
probably.
troupe, I think.
But it was just funny because Tim's like, I don't know. It's just the name of the dancers. I asked him like he's the authority on everything in the UK, including why they name people things on top of the pops.
Yeah, in the 60s before I was born.
No, Tim, you can't let them know how old you are. The world will never know.
Exactly.
Anyway, yes.
All right.
But yes, I agree with Tim. Kate Bush, yay.
Exactly. Anyway, let's go to another song. So this is another one you might not think would come from my list of Hill songs, and it couldn't be a further polar opposite from the world of Flagger Hill, if I'm being honest. This is Ready or Not, and this is the Fugees' Lauryn Hill
Ready or Not
and Wycliffe Jean.
I love that song. I love the Fugees. I think that she's got a great voice, and that little like opening I was singing, the Ready or Not, Here I Come. It's such a cool vibe. Like every one of their songs, I know they've kind of got like a little reggae thing going on, of course, but I love them. Love that song. But her voice is gorgeous and iconic, and she delivers a line so well.
You know, I'm curious to know. I'm going to pull the album up here. What year was this? 1996.
Yeah, I would have been mid-90s. That's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I think of that. I said, oh, I don't really like this modern music. That's all this time ago.
And well, I was 6 years old. But isn't that song, doesn't it like sample another song?
I think it does. I'm not familiar which one it's from, but yes.
I think it's an Enya song. And the only reason I know that is because I'm married to Charlie, who makes me listen to Enya on repeat. I can't think of what song it is, but...
There's nothing wrong with Orinoco Flow by Enya, let me tell you. And apparently Enya, she lives in like some castle in Ireland, and she makes all this money from this sort of... How do you describe Enya's music? It's like electronic orchestral, I think.
It is electronic orchestral meets exactly what you hear when you're in a massage parlor to relax.
Yeah, and like the vocals are like layered, so you can't really tell. It almost sounds like a robot voice of a fashion.
Yeah, that's true. And it's gorgeous. Don't get me wrong, but every song is almost like its masterpiece in and of itself. And that's what Charlie likes it. But that new album, I think Tim just said it. Her newest album, he was obsessed with. And he was like, you have to listen to it. So I've heard like every Enya song on repeat. But the problem is when I hear it, it makes me want to go to sleep, like in a good way, because it's very soothing sounds. And Charlie will be wanting to listen to it. I'm like, no, this is going to put me to sleep.
Yeah, I see. Since now I'm embracing this streaming music, I created a Spotify playlist called Bedroom Sounds. Yeah. Now, if you have Spotify and find me on there, you can find the playlist because they're all shared. You know, anyone can see anyone else's playlist, and it's got a lot of stuff on there. It's got some Ray Charles on there. It's got some I don't know. It's got Dixie Chicks on there. It's got stuff that's kind of low key for when you're just getting ready for bed. Maybe I need to flood that playlist with Enya. I don't know.
That or like that, because like it's like the beginning of that one. What's that one song that everybody knows from her about like sailing? Oh, I can't think of it.
It's the Orinoco Flow. That sail away, sail away.
That one always makes me want to go to sleep, which is the one everyone knows. But anyway, and all of her names of her songs I can never remember because they don't seem to have anything to do with the song. Like what that has to do with. I'm like the sailing one. That's the one. Now I have to give you guys some life tips though about music when you're sleeping. Be very careful what you put on when you're sleeping, because sometimes it will wake you up. That has happened to me before. I have woken up to Meatloaf one time. I don't suggest that. Gave me a freaking heart attack. But the one story that is my favorite My friend Molly, I was at her house and we were hanging out doing something. I don't remember. We had been listening to some different CDs, as you do back in the day. One of the CDs that we listened to was The Lion King. And the opening song on The Lion King is, Tim, do you know? Think about Circle of Life. Literally. And it was the original African version. So it was like the original Broadway one, not like Elton John's version. So we had left that in her CD player. Well, her CD player is what woke her up in the morning. So at 9 a.m., that goes off, and her dad had a heart attack. Slamming at the door, wondering what happened, because at 9 a.m. out of her bedroom. Yeah. And one time when I first got my, I have a lot of radio stories about when I first got my alarm clock that was a radio, back in the day. I was messing around with it and kind of forgot about it. And somehow I ended up on a channel that was just static. And so when my alarm went off, I was woken up by static. You want to talk about another heart attack? So moral stories, be careful with what you put on when you go to sleep.
Well, I will tell you, in our bedroom, I have an Onkyo CD radio unit with Bluetooth and additional speakers. And originally I'd play CDs in there because I love CDs. But the CD player started to stop working. First of all, it stopped playing track one on the discs. And then it started periodically skipping some of the tracks as well. And it just was not playing up. And it's like, it's completely unrepairable. You can't buy the parts for it. They don't make that model anymore. It's gone. But it did have the Bluetooth function. So now I created that Bedroom Sounds playlist and play it on there. But it has a sleep timer.
Yes.
So you put the sleep timer on 10 minutes, 20 minutes, boom, there you go.
I use that on my Google Home because that's where I stream through in our bedroom. And the sleep timer is a godsend, because otherwise at 3 a.m., Celine Dion will come into your bedroom screaming. I've had that happen before.
Yeah, she's going to tell you her heart still goes on at 4 o'clock in the morning. Nobody wants that.
And in America, and I don't know if you've seen the commercials, Tim, but we used to have these infomercials that would come on at like 3 in the morning. And it would always be the loudest song you've ever heard.
Oh, absolutely. It's a thing. Pumping up the volume for commercials is a known thing. And
it would always be like, I don't know, some Barbara Streisand infomercial at 3 a.m. that would wake you up. And there's like all these YouTube videos, and we all remember the same album. I'll have to send Tim one of them, because it's like, those were the sounds. And one of them, I think, really was Meatloaf, if I remember right. Because of course it was. All right. None of that had to do with heels. So moving on.
Okay. Well, I think we'll probably do 2 more, maybe 3 more. We'll see how we go. All right.
Sounds good.
So this one is from Peter Gabriel, and this is the song Salisbury Hill.
Oh, I don't even know if I know that song.
Rising up on Salisbury Hill.
I know that song. I haven't thought about that one in a long time. Yeah, I don't listen to Peter Gabriel that much.
Yeah, I prefer solo Peter Gabriel. Now, as you know, he originally was the singer with Genesis before Phil Collins was the singer. And I find some of that early Genesis, people love it. I don't find it terribly accessible. It is a little bit out there. Yeah, but I mean, if you're into true progressive rock, I mean, it's probably what you want to listen to. But I like the solo Peter Gabriel stuff. I think
so, like the 70s kind of era?
70s into the 80s, even into the 90s. Sledgehammer, Steam, all that stuff's good.
Yeah, and I kind of agree with you. For me, Genesis really doesn't start until Phil Collins. That's just the truth. He made that. I don't want to insult people who like Peter Gabriel's contribution to the band, but he makes that band to me.
I would completely agree. And in fact, some music news that I didn't get to. I think it was Mike Rutherford, the guitar player. He said that Genesis is officially done because Phil is in such poor health he can't tour anymore.
Oh, that's very sad. I know we had talked a little bit about he looked really rough.
Yeah, because the last tour that they did, he did the whole thing sitting in a seat. And he's in his 70s. All these rockers are in their 70s. And I mean, you see Brian May up there in his 70s, and he's an older man, but he's strutting around with his guitar and having a great time. Sammy Hagar, as we know, is completely immortal, who is 76 years old, and he looks like he's like 48. But Father Time has not been kind on Phil. And I think that last tour he did with Genesis was really hard on him.
Do you know exactly, has he kind of said what the physical elements are, like what's bothering him, or do we know?
I think it's his back mostly. His back is messed up, and his back is not in good shape. And I just think he's one of these folks who just hasn't aged terribly well. So some people take aging hits them hard.
Well, let's see. I'm going to give it a Goog on air. I'm generally curious. Apparently, he had an injury that resulted in damage to the vertebrae in his upper neck and left him with nerve damage, which has impacted his ability to perform. And so at this point, he's basically in a wheelchair due to the nerve damage that's affecting some of his vertebrae.
Yeah, it's sad because he's got so much talent, and even on the last Genesis tour, I mean, they dropped the keys on some of the songs because he's older, but his vocal style is still very much how you'd expect Phil Collins to sound.
Yeah. Well, and then it says Mark Rutherford. Oh, he was the one who provided an update. I thought he had something happen to him, but no, never mind. But yeah, apparently it's just constant use. They're saying that it was constant use, and then he had some type of injury or that effect that made it worse. And if you think about it, I mean, I feel like I've never really confirmed this, but I bet drummers have a lot of back problems.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I mean, some guitar players have back problems. Because I mean, if you play like a Les Paul guitar, Gibson Les Paul guitar, which is heavy, I mean, it's a sort of no medical condition called Les Paul stoop, where you're sort of like stooping off to one side. I mean,
like your tennis elbow.
Decades of a 12-pound guitar around your neck. I mean, goodness me.
I will say, when I first started playing the ukulele, I showed Tim like cuts and blisters on my finger. It does take, and there are some injuries involved in string instruments when you first start.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I've got to the point now, I mean, my fingertips are so tough. I mean, I can play guitar for hours and it doesn't make any difference.
Thankfully, I'm pretty much there because they're calloused all over, but because I play at least an hour every day. And that is a Phil Reese tip of the week, everyone. When I first started playing, Phil told me never go. Always play for at least an hour every day. Mm-hmm. He was right. It really does help because it just keeps you fresh. You don't forget the thing. Like, you constantly just keep remembering. Like, what I'll do is I'll practice what I already know and then add something new. And so it just keeps refreshing that. It works. Absolutely. I don't play unless I have a practice or a gig. I don't normally play for an hour a day, but I do make a point of trying to touch a guitar every single day. If I'm watching a TV show downstairs, I have a guitar hanging on the wall by the side of where I sit, and I can grab it and I can just twiddle away. And I normally play electric guitar in the house because it doesn't disturb anyone. Have I ever told you the horrible story about how someone left their guitar on the floor in the middle of a party that I was at, and I stepped on it and it sliced my toe open? Yeah. So here's a life tip, everyone. Don't set your acoustic guitar on the floor in the middle of a party. Yeah, I think that's a good tip. And then I ended up paying for him to get a new one because I felt bad, but it did slice the top of my toe off. Oh, dear. He set it directly on the floor beside the couch where I couldn't see it. I turned the corner and stepped right on it. Crikey. It's just... Honestly, Joe, I just want to wrap you up in cotton wool and bubble wrap and just save you from the world. I really do. Thankfully, it was not an expensive guitar. It only took me about $200 to replace that acoustic. There you go. It wasn't a Martin D28 or something. No. Tyler, if you're out there, I'm sorry I stepped on your guitar, but don't put it on the floor. That's just asking for someone to step on it in the middle of a party. Exactly. Exactly. All right. I don't know how that has anything to do with Phil Collins, but moving along. Okay. Well, let's close out this Hillsongs episode. And this is from Iron Maiden, which is not an act that we've really spoken of too much on this podcast. And this is Run to the Hills. Yeah, you're right Though now that you say that, Iron Maiden really hasn't come up very much on this podcast.
No, and the funny thing about Iron Maiden is that certainly back when they first came out, or sort of 80s and stuff, like people thought it was metal, it's heavy metal. But you listen to it now, it's actually just like classic rock, really.
Yeah, it's funny because that's like an ongoing debate with people who are into metal, whether Iron Maiden is metal or not. And if they're, the predecessors to metal, I don't know, to me, they don't really sound like metal. They just sound like Quiet Riot and that kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, they come from an era which was known as the new wave of British heavy metal, which is Judas Priest. I think Def Leppard even were wrapped up into that at the beginning of their career. But I consider Pantera and Slipknot and acts like that metal. This is just like rock or heavy rock or classic rock, really.
Yeah, I think the reason they get that kind of, I guess, reputation of being in the heavy metal world is because of like having albums like The Number of the Beast and things like that. I feel like it's more of the persona than the music. Sure.
And I mean, Black Sabbath invented all that kind of demon thing where, your devil and 666 and all this kind of stuff. And I mean, for the most part, they're just having fun with it. They're not sacrificing goats or anything like that.
Of course, and whenever we had the satanic. So for those who don't know this term, it's going to sound weird when I first say it. In America, there was a time where there was a satanic panic. So it's basically like Satan panic. Like there was a big thing about people thinking that people were Satanists and all this devil stuff was going on. And like the 90s, it was a big thing, late 80s. And so these artists kind of, I guess you could say they rocked the boat, and then they made people think that people were actually listening to the Smashing Pumpkins backwards and hearing the devil and things like that.
Sure.
But so they're playing into that, and everybody loves a good counterculture when it's a band, Tim.
Absolutely, 100%. But I mean, I've never seen Iron Maiden. However, Yannick Gers, the guitarist from Iron Maiden, his brother works in a place that makes flight cases. And his brother made me a flight case for an amplifier. So I'm effectively a member of Iron Maiden.
Who knew you were so connected, Tim? That's kind of funny. I mean, we really didn't say much about Run to the Hill. I mean, he's saying Run to the Hill and Save Your Lives a lot.
Exactly.
That's really all I can think about it. And I think in the album cover, there's a devil in the picture.
Well, I think it's, if I bring it up here, it's Eddie is on the cover, which is their mascot, which is like this large character thing.
Yeah, I wouldn't have known that. They have a mascot?
Yeah, called Eddie. Do a Goog.
Eddie. Okay.
Google Iron Maiden Eddie.
Iron Maiden Eddie. Oh, I've seen this before. Okay.
Yeah, so the Eddie character is often on stage with them, and Eddie is on all of their album covers. And when they toured, when Bruce Dickinson was flying the aircraft from gig to gig, they renamed the plane Ed Force One.
Huh, that's cute.
And the reason he's called cute, Eddie, in the very early days of Iron Maiden, they used to have a sign they'd put up at the back of the stage. It was like hand-painted, and it had a very early version of Eddie, just his head. And it said Iron Maiden and the head. And they'd go, oh, look, it's just his head. Why is it just his head? And then it goes, oh. And so they decided to call him Eddie because it was just his Ed.
Wow, what a play on some slang there. Well, I've seen that character like on people's shirts and stuff, but I didn't know who he was.
Yeah, it's like the mascot of the band.
Well, for those of you guys who don't know, give it a Google like I did, and don't feel bad. I will say Iron Maiden is just one of those bands that I've never... I don't know that I kind of forget they exist.
Yeah, it's great music. They have great songs, but as I said, it's not something that's super in my playlist. Maybe I need to add Iron Maiden to my rotation. I don't know.
I wouldn't put it in your sleeping playlist. That's just some advice.
No, there are no ballads.
You would have some interesting dreams about Eddie.
Absolutely.
All right. Do you have anything else for the people, Tim?
Just be incredibly extra kind to everyone that you meet.
All right. Bye.
Bye-bye. See you later. Bye-bye.